welcome to Conspiracize Me, episode 12. I racked my brain about what to do for this episode. Didn't know if I wanted to continue on with the afterlife. In fact, I have ended up going to the concept of Hollywood and world events. Do Hollywood movies, or just the whole medium of television and the big screen, correspond to world events? Does Hollywood act as commentary to world events, or prepare people and its viewers for world events to come? Going a layer deeper, do those behind the movies, behind the ideas, have an idea of what is to come? Do they have an a connection so as to be aware of what's to come? A lot of movies about the end of the world and floods, disasters, earthquakes, famines, pestilences, strange things, even aliens. What exactly is the role of Hollywood besides just entertainment or education? Or maybe Hollywood is hyping up an event that is meant to be perhaps a farce, a false event, and maybe we're all looking in this direction when something from a complete different direction is coming our way, and yet we're all focused on the wrong thing. That is to say, you should never really get your tone of the day from Hollywood, but it is a big moneymaker. It is on the big screen. It is difficult to even pull ourselves away from conversations, daily conversations with those within our circle of what Hollywood is producing. So it's huge. It's in society. It's everywhere we look, on billboards, TVs, ads. What role does it want to play? What role does it not want us to know that it plays? Okay, so laying the groundwork, as I've already tried to do, but we're going to let ChatGPT get in on this. So the mainstream view is Hollywood as entertainment and storytelling. That's what most people believe about Hollywood. Most people want to come home on a Friday, spend the weekend perhaps even binging on a series or just watching one or a few movies. It's entertainment. It's a story. Something to distract me from my own story. At its core, Hollywood exists to make money by capturing attention. Studios invest enormous sums into films and television because stories entertain people, create emotional connections, and generate revenue. Movies and shows also serve several secondary functions: preserving cultural values and myths, exploring social issues, educating audiences about history, science, and current events, providing escapism during uncertain times. Throughout history, filmmakers have used stories to process major events. After wars, economic downturns, or technological changes, Hollywood often produces content that helps society make sense of what people are experiencing. For example, the Cold War fueled alien invasion movies. Post-war 9/11 era saw a rise in surveillance themes and darker superhero films. Growing concerns about artificial intelligence have led to more AI-centered stories. In this view, Hollywood is less a crystal ball and more a mirror. So things are going on within society that's making people think or consider something new, something different, maybe from a different perspective. Hollywood jumps in and says, okay, let's create some stories that help people see what happened from a new light, from a different perspective, maybe using a fictional story to see something real from a different lens. Let's just try and paint the picture in people's minds. The influence argument is Hollywood shapes culture. Researchers in media studios often point to concepts like cultivation theory. Repeated media exposure can influence how audiences perceive reality. And then you've got social learning theory. People may model behaviors and attitudes they observe in media. Movies and television can normalize ideas, popularize language, change fashion trends, and shift public attitudes over time. So you have, if you see it enough, if you hear it enough, it'll start to become part of your normal vocabulary. It'll start to become normal vocabulary and attitudes for the culture. The more people view a thing and are affected by that movie or show, whatever it might be, by that character, the more it starts to shape culture, how we speak, how we think, how we interact with each other or an idea, and that starts to pervade our normal everyday lives. The conspiracy angle comes in when you consider predictive programming. One of the most persistent theories surrounding Hollywood is the basic claim: entertainment media introduces audiences to future events, technologies, or social changes before they happen. So believers argue this serves one or more purpose: desensitizing the public to future events, making major changes feel familiar when they occur, testing audience reactions to controversial ideas, and signaling plans to insiders. So essentially with this view, you have Hollywood showing the audience something that has not happened yet, something they may not be very familiar with. It is strange, to say the least. They watch it, and the makers, or even the influencers to the makers, pay very close attention to the feedback that they are receiving from the audience. Based on what the feedback is, maybe it tells them to wait a little bit on exposure in the realm of real life, or go ahead with it. Let's go ahead. You don't want to shock people too much. If you want something to be accepted, but it's going to change the way that they live, it's going to change what they believe, you don't want to shock them with it necessarily if you want it to be received. So maybe you hit them with some doses here and there, and that's what they're looking for. Common examples cited by proponents include pandemic storylines before COVID-19, surveillance technologies appearing in films before widespread adoption, artificial intelligence themes becoming mainstream before the recent AI boom, fictional depictions of virtual reality and augmented reality before consumer products existed. However, there is a simpler explanation. Hollywood creates thousands of stories every year. Writers frequently extrapolate from existing trends. When some of those predictions come true, people remember the hits and forget the misses. Psychologists call this confirmation bias, our tendency to notice evidence that supports our beliefs while overlooking evidence that doesn't. Okay, so predictive programming might be more along the lines of you just remember what you watched and how you felt a little bit better than some of the other things, the nonsense perhaps that you watched because it just happened to come to pass. Or maybe an idea feels like it is completely new, but in reality it's already set in motion in the real world, and then these movies, when it hits people, when it attaches itself to their mind, then they start to think about it more and more. Then they start to see it everywhere, which they weren't seeing it before, and now they're like, oh, see, this is predictive programming. I hadn't seen this before, and now I'm starting to see it everywhere. I have a Disney shirt on. I used to work for Disney, and one of the things when I got the job is I started to see Mickey Mouse literally everywhere. I started to see Disney themes everywhere, and I hadn't seen it before. It could be predictive programming. My gosh, the universe. See, I knew it was programming me. I knew it was a simulation because now I'm seeing Disney things everywhere. It's like ads. Ads are now popping up all over the place. When those things in reality were already there, but when I put myself into a situation where I was surrounded by Disney all the time, I started to see it all over the place just because I started to recognize it. Why Hollywood sometimes appears prophetic. There are several reasons movies can seem to predict the future. Number one, writers study emerging trends. They interview scientists, military experts, futurists, and technologists. And then number two, large institutions influence scripts. Government agencies, corporations, and the military occasionally cooperate with filmmakers by providing expertise or access to equipment. For example, you have the United States Department of Defense has a long history of consulting on films that depict the military. And number three, technology inspires fiction, and fiction inspires technology. You have technology that's being made, and you have fiction that wonders and dreams about how all the ways in which that technology can be put to use. And then you've got the makers of that technology watching this fiction, getting ideas from other people's brains and ideas, going, wow, I hadn't thought that this thing I created could do all these other things. And if I just tweak this, if I just add this, then it can do that and more. And then round and round the cycle goes. Engineers have cited films and television shows as inspiration for real inventions. You have examples such as video calls, tablets, and voice assistants. Interesting. The relationship is often circular rather than one directional. And here we have the deeper question. Instead of asking, is Hollywood preparing us for what's to come, the real question is, who benefits from the stories we repeatedly consume? Some of the questions that can be asked is, which themes appear repeatedly during specific historical periods? Who funds and distributes major films? How do current events shape the stories being told? How do those stories influence public expectations? The answer may not be a secret cabal controlling society, it may be something more subtle, a feedback loop between audiences, creators, governments, corporations, and cultural anxieties. Hollywood both reflects and shapes society. So it's neither purely entertainment or purely manipulation. It's a powerful storytelling ecosystem where economics, politics, technology, and human psychology intersect. I think it is a fair explanation, a fair reason to say that writers get ideas by interviewing people in the know. I think there are people in the know who want to get their ideas out. Ultimately, the coolest idea cycle would be the newest technology, inspiring fiction writers, who then inspire the technology creators, who then inspire even more fiction, and then on it goes, building one on top of the other. All technology anyway comes from ideas. If you can think it, you can do it. Human intuition will try and make that idea real. All right, now I want to hit you with a few examples where people frequently point these creations, these Hollywood creations, as prophetic. And ChatGPT is going to break this down into 3 distinctive points here. So number 1 is accurate forecasting. Creators studied trends and made informed predictions. Number 2 is self-fulfilling prophecy, a story inspired real-world developments. And then number 3, coincidence and hindsight bias. We remember the hits and forget the misses. You've got pandemics. The movie Contagion from 2011. Contagion is perhaps the most famous modern example. The film depicts a novel virus originating from animal to human transmission, global supply chain disruptions, social distancing measures, misinformation spreading online, contact tracing efforts, and public distrust of authorities. Sounds a whole lot like what we saw happen in 2020. When COVID-19 emerged in 2020, audiences were struck by how closely the movie mirrored reality, and this movie again was from 2011, almost a decade beforehand. However, the writers worked extensively with epidemiologists and public health experts. They weren't predicting a specific pandemic, they were dramatizing what experts had long warned was inevitable. It sounds like people knew that some sort of world sickness was bound to hit the human race, so they went ahead and created the movie. So next we have surveillance and personalized advertising. From the movie Minority Report in 2002, featured targeted advertisements that recognized individuals, gesture-based interfaces, and predictive policing. Today we have personalized digital advertising, facial recognition systems, and predictive analytics used by law enforcement. Not every prediction came true, but enough did to make the film feel prescient. Importantly, technology companies actively consulted futurists involved with the film and later drew inspiration from its concepts. Okay, next we've got social media and digital identity, and this was shown in the series called Black Mirror from 2011 up to present time. So Black Mirror explored themes that later became mainstream concerns: algorithmic influence, deepfakes, digital surveillance, social credit systems, AI companions, and virtual reality addiction. Episodes such as Nosedive and Be Right Back seem especially relevant today because they extrapolated existing technologies just a few steps forward. Alright, some other examples include reality television and online life from The Truman Show in 1998. The Truman Show anticipated aspects of influencer culture and the voluntary sharing of personal lives online. The film arrived before social media platforms, live streaming culture, and the creator economy. It asked whether people would willingly turn their lives into entertainment, a question that seems remarkably relevant today, which in the case of influencers all over social media, that is essentially what they have done, is turn their lives into one big entertainment where they film themselves, do certain things, maybe present a product, but they're always doing so. Like that is their job, but it's also lifestyle. Nuclear anxiety. This was depicted in the movie The Day After in 1983. The Day After stands apart because it was explicitly intended to influence public opinion. The film depicted the aftermath of a nuclear war and was watched by millions in the United States. Historical accounts suggest it deeply affected public discussion about nuclear weapons and even influenced policymakers, including Ronald Reagan. This is an example not of predictive programming, but of a film deliberately created to shape public attitudes about a possible future. What if this were to happen? What type of discussion would people start to have regarding the potential of reality of a nuclear attack? Next, we have the concept of artificial intelligence, depicted in the movie Her from 2013. Her portrayed emotionally intelligent AI assistants years before the rise of modern large language models. The film explored questions we are now actively debating: human attachment to AI, personalized digital companions, and the emotional impact of increasingly human-like technology. It is a good thing to use movies as perhaps a sounding board or jumping off point into further discussion, considering where the world could go. I think movies can have that, and obviously have had that effect on culture. A lot of times, if we don't give thought to what that could look like before the moment of impact hits, maybe we act on a whim when we get angry. But perhaps if you have even seen a film, seen the disaster, the heartbreak that comes from nuclear attacks, from war, even from just getting behind the wheel, intoxicated, the impacts that could have on you, your family, on the people around you, maybe you'll consider, I don't want that type of future. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to my family. You know, case in point, if you watch a movie like It's a Wonderful Life, watch a broken man, how decisions led to a broken family and a broken community. Maybe watching that will influence the way that you decide to live. I know a lot of movies I've come away from thinking, I maybe want to think twice about how I respond in certain situations. And these people whose job it is to research and study trends on where things are going, literally paid to go down the rabbit hole and think, okay, if this happens, what happens next? What could happen next? And then after that, and these teams come together and they consider storylines, what could be, what could not be. They throw ideas in, they toss ideas out until they finally come up with this grand old plan. And now we're thinking, oh, they're trying to prepare us for what's to come. Maybe. Or maybe they're just using their minds to think, well, what perhaps is the logical, though maybe illogical to us right now, the next logical step of where this goes. That doesn't mean films reveal hidden plans, but it does mean they can function as cultural rehearsal spaces where societies test ideas, fears, and possibilities before they become reality. And so perhaps the main question that we get from all of this is this: are movies and shows predicting the future, or are they helping create it? And I think, again, that goes back to the cycle of these ideas come out, and they give the people, the society, ideas, and we think about and ruminate around these ideas, and then some of that sinks in, it sticks with some of us, and it starts to make its mark in how we live. And so it starts to create buttons in society where if these buttons start to get pushed, it creates an effect that starts to have impacts on the people around us. I think movies and television shows do have an impact on the way society goes. And so I'll leave you with this. It is all the more important, I think, to consider what you want to watch. I don't think that everything is fruitful. I don't think that everything is going to bear good fruit. You can make time for concepts. You can't make time for all of these movies that flesh out what these concepts could look like. But I think it's important to give thought to what you're watching. Before you watch it, maybe consider, why do you want to watch it? What type of an impact is this going to have? Consider who it is you're hanging out with. What do they like to watch? What do they like to think about? What do they like to read? What do they like to fill their minds with? And decide, is this the type of person, are these the type of people that I want to surround myself with? Because just as important as it is to be mindful about what you're watching and what you're reading, what you're filling your mind with, is who you're filling your time with. Because the type of people that you spend time with is ultimately what shapes you as a person. You're shaped by the things that you fill your mind with. You're shaped by the people that you spend your time with. So be very, very careful with what you're allowing to shape your mind, your concepts, your frameworks, your beliefs, your worldviews, because all of that determines how you live, who you become, and ultimately, when you expound that to a society full of people, a world full of people, that determines the way of society. That determines the way of the world. You can't change everybody, but you can change yourself. You can change your thoughts, the way that you think. You can change and influence who you spend your time with. And so you can help determine where you're going, where your family is going, and ultimately, that can help determine where the community and where society is going. If you want better out of the team around you, if you want better out of the society around you, if you just want better in general, watch what you're pouring into yourself and then see what kind of impact you can have upon others. That being said, mind your entertainment choices and enjoy life. Thanks for watching.